I'm not the house of cards that falls down easily. Oh, I'm strong enough to handle what you throw at me.
Welcome to Mental Health News Radio. I'm your host, Kristen Sunanta Walker. Just what are we going to discuss? The intimacy that is mental health. Let's continue to make it as comfortable as discussing brain health or heart health. This show has been on the air for several years, and we have amazing co-hosts. And then we created a network of podcasters on mentalhealthnewsradionetwork.com, a place where every possible facet of mental well-being can be talked about openly. My show, after several hundred interviews, the format is this: intimate, deep, funny, touching, sometimes uncomfortable, but always vulnerable conversations with interesting people. The goal is to have you, our listening family, many of you who have become my good friends, feel as though you are listening in on private conversations. Thank you for tuning in and becoming part of this amazing journey with me, and now with our network of podcasters. Just knowing this podcast might be helping any of you realize you are not alone on this journey called being a human being makes doing this podcast worth every second.
After all we promised, we'd be cordial.
Hi, everyone. This is Kristen Sunanta Walker, and I'm the CEO of Mental Health News Radio Network. I'm really excited to introduce a new podcast to the network with Leah Barrett. And Leah's going to talk a little bit about herself. So this is an introduction of you to her and what her show is about. Leah, hi. Thanks so much for coming on the network and for doing your podcast, Precarious.
Oh, thank you so much. I'm really excited to be able to share this with everybody.
So let's do a little bit of an intro about you and your background so that people understand where the term precarious comes from for you.
Yeah, absolutely. A little bit about my background and training. I'm a licensed clinical social worker. I'm also a master's level nutritionist. My entire adult aspiration was to work to combine mental health and physical health. So over a number of years, I have integrated working with people in kind of that holistic way. I'm currently in private practice as a therapist and nutritionist. And the idea of Precarious came about because about 6 years ago, I was diagnosed with stage 3 ovarian cancer. And like probably many people who've diagnosed with cancer, it felt like it just, came out of the blue and took the ground out from under my feet. And then over that time of, moving through that treatment, I found myself really unhinged, like I was on a planet that I had never been on without any sort of compass or roadmap. And after getting through that treatment, I subsequently found out that I also carry what's called the BRCA1 gene, the BRCA gene, which is a gene that puts you at very high risk for developing ovarian and breast cancer. So as soon as I completed the ovarian cancer treatment, I made a decision to have a prophylactic double mastectomy, which is a fancy way of saying to prevent breast cancer, you have your breast removed. So I did that, feeling empowered and relieved. And then a couple years after that, I actually developed breast cancer. Wow. So another opportunity to face the fragility of life and how precarious life can really be. Coming through that, I felt less unhinged, more ready, given my prior experience of going through ovarian cancer. And actually was beginning to sort of, weirdly say, relax into some sense of getting to know who I was again. When about a year after that, I was diagnosed again with recurrent ovarian cancer. And that actually happened about 6 months ago at this point. So Precarious really began to develop over the past couple of months, this notion of, as much as I have this instinct to relax into life and to to let my mind believe that there's a sense of stability and a future and a sense of, I don't know, just knowing everything's going to be okay. What I'm facing is the reality that I have no idea. I don't know. And what do I do with that? How do I live with that uncertainty? And that's how the idea of starting this podcast came about, because I believe that there are many of us, not just with cancer, but lots of experiences that they've faced that they could say, yeah, I get it. Life is really precarious, but what do I do with that?
Right.
How do I live with that?
I think about that in terms of, okay, you look at someone, okay, they wrote a book about an experience, or they, do a podcast, or they do whatever. And that's a moment of time in their life. And it's important to talk about that. But then people kind of forget, they sort of freeze you in that moment. It's like what they do when we do fandom with people. Like they're always that moment of whatever it is they've accomplished.
Mm-hmm.
And we don't tend to look at, yeah, but how did they wake up the next day and make their coffee and go get the groceries and have breakfast, and mentally, how are they doing, like with all the days of their life? They don't just sit in that moment.
Right. It's a great observation. Yeah. Like if I could let you inside my mind and my day,
Mm-hmm.
you would see that I have the same struggles everyone else does. And maybe really what's different is, carrying this weight, this sort of perpetual anxiety, if I could call it that, and not wanting to fall prey to it or let that rob me. Right.
Right.
I can
Because
present.
time is very precious when you're
Yeah.
given something like this on your plate of life.
Yeah. Right. And so absolutely, if what we're challenged with is to live with the knowing of the limits we have, the time we have, without falling into that cliche, what do we do with that? I think we talk about knowing our mortality, and we talk as if we're super aware of how that might drive us and the decisions we make. But I guess I suspect that feels like an intellectual conversation that a lot of us have.
Right.
What I'm incredibly aware of, and suspect others are too, is that it's not an intellectual conversation. It is a knowing that you live with every single day, and it's not pretty. I guess what I'm trying to say is, it's not like I have these epiphanies that I feel so grateful for, and that I think other people should listen to, because it'll be this wisdom. I actually think it's really messy. So
Yeah, it coincides with the part of why someone would be a counselor.
yeah. Mm-hmm.
Just the muck of everyday life, and I'm always surprised at how much I one dimension people.
Mm-hmm.
And then go, okay, you need to stop that. Even with all the stuff that I do and all the work I've done and all that, I still go, man, I was really one dimensioning them. That is so unfair.
Yeah. I'm glad you said that, because I'll share my most recent experience of going back into my private practice as a therapist. I took a medical leave for about 3 months. And so it's been, I think I'm in week 5 or 6 at this point, talking to you, of seeing clients again. And it was really interesting to interface with clients for the first time after I'd gone on that leave. Right. And one of my clients said, wow, I guess I realized that I just didn't understand that you struggle too, that you have problems, that you face, all of this uncertainty that I bring to you. And I could tell, I mean, she was kind of blown away. And
Right.
so it's been, for some of my clients, and understandably so, a little, perception shattering for them.
Mm-hmm.
But, not to get into my philosophy as a therapist, I firmly believe that we're all connected through that fallibility and that sense of humanity. And I actually think that's where we find comfort in each other, is not necessarily through the joy, but through understanding that we all know what pain is. We all know what suffering is. So my point is, she hadn't, until I sent that email that said, I need to leave to take care of this cancer treatment.
Right.
She just didn't even like dawn on her that, oh, wow, yeah, she's human too.
It's kind of funny. This is the most trite way of saying it, but it popped in my head, and this is why I'm a podcaster. Things pop in your head and they fall out your mouth. I was thinking about when I was like maybe in 7th grade, and I saw the lunch lady from my school cafeteria at Lucky's, which was the supermarket at the time. I don't know if there are any more Lucky's, but and I was just utterly shocked that she didn't just live in the lunchroom.
Yeah. Yep.
Mm-hmm. And she was there with kids. Oh my God, she has children. Like it, you don't walk around thinking, oh, they just live in a cafeteria, but you're still shocked to see somebody out of where you're used to,
Yes.
seeing them. So I would imagine, with your therapist, I mean, that's the beauty. I was going to ask you that. The beauty of going to therapy is you have this person that is all for you, and they are, helping you and guiding you and so on. And so there's so many schools of thought around don't share your life. And then I see it from this other perspective of, well, I work with a lot of people that are in the addiction field, and a lot of that's very different from traditional outpatient counseling, because people tend to share their life, their addiction story, with the people that they're counseling. And there's all these different schools of thought. So I was curious about where you landed, where you were before diagnosis and now after, with that keeping the veil or not kind of thing.
Yeah, that was a big decision for me the first time that I decided to return to practice after I was diagnosed. I remember sitting with that and really playing out both scenarios. Like, what would it be like to not let people know what I've been through?
Right.
And what would it be like to be transparent? And I worked through that, not only just from kind of my own sense of comfort, but kind of decided to get some supervision and consultation on that in my field of psychotherapy. And as you just mentioned, there really isn't a right way. To what we need to be careful of is not making that self-disclosure about us, right, when we're with clients. But I decided that a couple things I want to share. My concern about being transparent with clients about what I'd been through, I realized, was I had this fear that they would see me as flawed. That, and I got in touch with that having cancer felt shameful, like something was wrong with me, that I was broken, that I maybe wasn't, I don't know, in all senses of the word, reliable because of the mortality part.
Right.
That I was worried that people would run away from me. And I still have that a little bit, but I'll never forget how intense that was when I was thinking about coming back into practice. And I was frightened that clients would see me as not capable and damaged, and that I couldn't do it anymore.
Wow.
But I really decided to face that risk, because when I tried on for size not sharing my experience, and all I mean by that is like really putting it underground, like really sort of not just to clients, but the world, that somehow is going to hide this, that felt so disingenuous to me, because how do I hide, 18 months, and I was bald, from just who I am in the world.
Right.
So I couldn't
I'm just into wigs now.
Yeah,
that's
right.
just the way
Exactly.
it is,
yeah. So I just, it just, even though I thought, well, I could do this, I decided I can't compartmentalize this. And so I'm going to face the risk that some clients and I don't want to limit it to that sort of therapeutic environment. Just people in general will decide consciously or subconsciously that they kind of can't be around me anymore. And you know what that is, and I understand this, is it I'm sort of this mirror to facing mortality.
Right.
Not me as a person, but cancer. And that's okay, right? You know,
Right.
it's a version of self-selecting. Like if I'm going to be transparent about what I'm going through and people choose to not be in relationship with me, I guess I'd rather know that than not, right?
Oh, that's brave. Yeah.
Yeah.
I feel this from you that, like, you know, you'd be the last person that would go, look at how great I am, that I'm doing this because of, you know, to spread awareness, blah, blah, blah. Like, you're very humble, and that's not where you're coming from. And yet it is brave that you've shared what you have with your clients, but also to do a podcast, because I don't know what it is. I've said this to so many other podcasters. There's something about that microphone and using your voice and speaking into the void. It's very, very different. It's not better. It's just different than getting on a stage and having audience reaction. When it's just you and the mic, or you and another person in the mic, it's almost a faith, whatever you believe in. It's almost a faith thing, in that you are just speaking to the void and hoping that it lands on someone in a way that's helpful to them. So I tell them, get ready to have a supercharge to your spiritual life wherever you land on that spectrum, because that is something that this mic does.
Yeah. And well said. I hope so too.
Hi, listeners. I'll make it quick. These are some really cool places that give discounts and other cool things for listeners of Mental Health News Radio Network. If you want to get amazing help with healing from narcissistic abuse, go to healfromanarcissist.com. If you want CBD products that are the best of the best, I use them myself, go to proze.com and use the code mentalhealth20, mentalhealth20. If you want to get daily perk ups that help retrain your brain to think more positively, go to perkupdaily.com. And also, just because this one's fun, snarkycandles.com. I guarantee you'll love them. Snarky with a Y, SNARKY, candles.com. And don't forget, if you want to hear all the shows on the network about first responders, you can go to firstrespondermentalhealthnetwork.com, and all of our shows that focus on narcissistic abuse, narcissisticabusehealingnetwork.com. Thanks for listening, and back to the show.
I think what's driving me to enter this sort of venue of connection is I'm lonely. Like, I get really lonely living this precarious awareness of life, and I suspect other people are feeling that as well. So if having conversations with others who also appreciate the fragility of life is a way to create a sense of connection, a little less loneliness in this world we walk in. I mean, that's all I'm hoping for.
It is. It's funny. It's so funny that you bring up the loneliness part, because a lot of people would never acknowledge that, even though everybody feels it, no matter who they are. But I was just thinking about that over the last couple of weeks. You know, we get so busy in life and all this stuff going on that we forget, just like we forget what it is to actually be physically hungry when we're constantly engorging on whatever. We also, I think, we can anesthetize ourselves away from actually feeling lonely.
Yeah.
Like, I'm not lonely. Well, yeah, you are. You're just not associating whatever stuff's going on right here with the fact that you're lonely.
Yeah.
And that's okay.
Yeah. Right. Like, it's somehow, again, some sort of admission of weakness to acknowledge a loneliness. You don't really hear people talk about that word, right?
Right.
And you're right, if you do challenge someone or even yourself, you might say, well, how can I be lonely? Look how busy I am. Look how engaged I am. As a matter of fact, my to-do list is so big, I can never get it done.
Right.
But really, it can be a way to not know yourself, not sit with whatever you're feeling, for sure. It's just another form of self-soothing. And
Absolutely.
yeah, so to stop and just check in and acknowledge
Yep.
that I feel, I don't feel witnessed, or I feel disconnected. And
Right.
I think these experiences that people have that are so life-changing, maybe on paper, some of these experiences look really similar to each other, whether it's the loss of a child or a car accident that leaves someone differently abled, and someone can say, me too, or cancer. The thing
Mhm.
is, it's not. I mean, even within those categories of trauma,
Hmm.
everyone's experience is so different, so unique. And although we try to come close to feeling witnessed and understood in those times where the floor falls out, the ultimate awareness is no one will ever really know how I'm feeling about this or what this is like for me. And I think the goal is to come close. I think the goal is to
Mhm.
feel a little less lonely, a little more understood.
Yep.
Yeah.
Absolutely. When you're talking about this thing that you have, I immediately the word cooties, like you have cooties if you admit that you're lonely, or that you have cancer, or that you were molested, or whatever it is
Yeah.
that's gone on in your life that can carry such deep shame for people.
Yeah, you're already sort of struggling with it yourself and trying to come to terms with it within yourself. And it's not a one moment thing. Oh, okay, now I'm connected to it and I'll never have struggles with it again. No, that's not the way it works.
Right.
You get shades of different struggles as you go on. But it is like, oh, I've got these cooties or the flu, and I'm gonna like give that to other people, and they'll be ashamed and they won't want to know me, and they'll da 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 da. And that's what, like you're saying, a reflection of sometimes your own stuff, because
Yeah.
I've done that and had people go, I never felt that, Kristen. I never thought of you that way. That was all you. And sometimes that's someone extremely narcissistic that's projecting. And sometimes it's someone who's like, they're a dear friend and they're just amazing. And I'm like, yep, I can totally own that was just me.
Yeah. These are the experiences that there's an opportunity to look inward, right? And really be able to do some self-checks around, what's going on for me? How do I see myself in relationship to other people or the world? For sure. And you were making a good point earlier that these experiences that we have that are life-changing aren't a one and done. Yeah, for example, if someone writes a book about it, it feels maybe like it's that moment captured in time. But the truth is, it's an ongoing process of learning to live with and integrate. And the challenges just evolve. I don't think there's a finish line in figuring out how to get to the other side of whatever this thing was at all. And the other part about what can be challenging is similar to grieving and someone losing a loved one, and how people rally around you initially. And it's amazing. And thank goodness it is. But then as time goes on, right, people engage in their lives again and not intentionally forget you, but it feels like they forget you.
Right.
And that's the other part of the loneliness, right? Is listen, you want to scream to the world, I'm still going through this.
Yeah.
I'm still pretty messed up.
Right.
I know this might actually feel boring right now to you because I'm still in it, and
Right.
you've lost interest. I think it contributes to that isolation. There's early on in like a cancer diagnosis, the people that rally, it's the most amazing love I have ever felt. I mean, like that part of it, wow, I'm filled with awe and gratitude about that. And I don't know if other people feel like this, but there is a sense of sadness when that goes away. Like, I don't know if I can ever feel that again. Not that I ever want, to have something awful
Right.
happen to me so I can have that happen again. But there's something simultaneously amazing and beautiful about that initial rally, of people showing up and feeling kind of redeemed about humanity.
Right.
And then when you move further away from whatever that incident was or what you're learning to live with, there's this, and my life is somehow kind of coming into that new norm again, but it feels like I miss that
Right.
love. Right. And
Mm.
here's something weird to admit. Every once in a while, I wish I could find that again. And sometimes I crave those experiences. Again, never want to be in that hospital bed again. But if I could capture what it was like to be in the intense relationships when I was in the thick of it, in the now, I would love that.
It makes me think of two things. One is this woman that I had heard years ago that came to speak at an event, and she had had a near-death experience. And she said that all this love that she felt wherever she went during this near-death experience, when she came back into her body, she was so angry and so lost because she had felt nirvana in wherever she was, and then it took her years to process the absence of that just all consuming just love. It made me think of that, and then it made me think of this other woman who came on with a Dr. Mark Feldman. He's probably the world leading expert on Munchausen, and he had a woman come on whose father was a Holocaust survivor, and he was very angry and depressed and obviously in mass amounts of trauma, and then trying to, raise a child on top of that. But the only time that she could get any love from him or any actual, display of affection was when she was ill.
Mm-hmm.
And so she learned very early, and I'm not saying everyone, does this. That's just what happened for her. She started to make herself sick.
Yeah.
Way into adulthood, because that was how she learned at such a young age to get love. And I bring up those two things because we all want that. I mean, that's what a birthday is supposed to be about. The day that you celebrate with people that love you, and it's all about you for a whole day.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And I think we're so busy in life that we're just like, or we forget the meaning or that connection with people. And so I think a lot of us are just walking around completely lonely and lost as to what is wrong with us. When the reality is, it could just be that we're really profoundly lonely.
Mm-hmm. I think more so than ever. And I feel like it gets magnified or shows up in those moments of pain, and that all by itself, right? I mean, whatever you've been through is hard enough. Is so awful. Creates a sense of isolation. It can feel, the loneliness can feel magnified. It's
Yep.
And you're right. I think there's a baseline of that for everybody in our culture right now, and that all by itself is sad, right? I mean, there's
Yep.
lots of research and conversations around what is that and why is that going on. And again, one of my drivers for doing this podcast is to, hopefully have people hear similarities in these stories, and be able to say, yeah, okay, that's right. I'm not as lonely as maybe I thought I was. That, we just don't talk to each other about this stuff. We don't, for all the reasons we just said, whether it's, shame or some sort of trepidation of sharing
or
our
just
trauma.
busy with life, and it comes at you and whatever's going on. And so you forget how to really connect. That's the thing I think about when you were talking to me about doing the show. And I want to find out from you, what you see, even though that's going to morph and change. But when I thought about the concept of it, and you were asking me, do you think anyone would want to listen, and what, will it be helpful? And I was like, oh my God, hands down, the first thing I thought of is all the podcasts that I've done with people that are in mass amounts of trauma, especially from psychologically abusive relationships. And, they're so gaslit. They've got Stockholm syndrome. They have, all the diagnoses, that come with PTSD, all of that. And they would say to me, I would get I have, well, at this point, it's thousands of emails and text messages and whatever from people saying, I've listened to the same show or shows that you've done over and over and over again, because they're so in trauma that they can't sleep. And that hearing, and it wasn't my voice, it's just the words and whoever the guest was, but just hearing someone do an hour's worth of validation helped them go to sleep at night so they could have a moment of peace. So when you told me about this, I thought, okay, people going through some kind of just, category 5 or whatever, scale it is in their life, need to hear other people talking about it so they feel less alone.
Yeah. I very much relate to what you just said, because in my process of trying to find the ground again underneath my feet, I search and I seek for others' stories that are as close to my experience as possible, because it is soothing. It is validating. Here is someone else walking this planet, trying to make sense and be okay, trying to find ways to motivate themselves to get out of bed and, engage in the world. And if this person is doing it, and again, not perfectly, messy's fine, then right. I can do it, right? I can do this. It's not just me. And that is a big part of what I hope for in doing the podcast and interviewing all types of people and hearing their stories of recognizing the fragility of life. I guess I want to emphasize that it's not just going to be living with a life-threatening illness, though I do want to disclose that I will be sharing, my current experiences as well as my historical experiences with it, because it's happening to me in real time. I'm still, in follow-up. I still get CAT scans. I still, get blood draws looking for tumor markers. It's something that I am still trying to live with. And I think being transparent in real time with whatever audience I end up garnering, I hope that will be helpful as well.
Oh, it so will be. It's also hearing, like I'll say something that is ridiculously me because I'm just me on these things. We're not actors doing this, and I don't put on a professional voice when I'm doing this. For me, I can for a specific show. If I'm talking about, value-based payment and healthcare, then obviously that's a very different tone. But if I'm doing a show like this, where it's like, we're really talking about the human condition, you're just being you. And we all have these tics. We all have these things that can be amusing to some and irritating to others because we're real human beings.
Yeah.
And what I found over the years, because I've been doing this a long time, what I found is my audience gets irritated with me, which they should, because I can be freaking irritating. But most of them, love me through it. And it's sort of a reminder of, this is a real person.
Mm-hmm.
She's being kind of narcissistic right now, but we know she'll come back to center, or she's doing her Kristen thing where she's going off on whatever and ad nauseum. And that it's nice for people to get to know you through this kind of a medium. And then they've been listening to you for a while. They don't even, yes, they're still listening, but they're thinking about something you've said that was whatever, funny, insightful, irritating, whatever it is, while they're not listening to you. And I always think, oh, that's great, because when we're obsessed with whatever's going on with us, we need that thing. We need our mind to go, pivot, let's think about something else and put you in a better frame of mind. And if that could be something that they heard you say on a show, freaking fantastic. And you're able to do that without even being there with them, listening to it. That part I love,
Yeah. Beautifully said. Right. Because what our mind does is it has this beautiful way of hijacking the now, right?
Yes, it does.
Holding us
so
hostage.
Frustrating.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it does hold us hostage. And so if part of what this experience is gives someone this lifeline to get out of that hostage, mentality of their mind and pull them out, it's refreshing. They can breathe again. So yeah, I hear you. And we don't know what those moments are, right? I mean, we don't know how someone's going to resonate with something we say, but we hope that something is familiar enough to have them, gain a little more objectivity or perspective about what they're going through.
Absolutely. I mean, it could be something like a thought that you had while you were waiting for, the results of a test. And so this is obviously, you've been through it before, and there's always that anxiety and whatever it is, but it could be that kind of a situation that they're hearing and going, yep, I totally resonate with that. Or it could be something completely stupid, like this morning, I'm getting ready to move. And this morning I walk out and I notice all of the pock marks on the place that I'm living. And I start going out down this rabbit trail of, oh, my neighbors are going to be so happy that I'm gone because I'm just a mess with these dogs. And I had to stop myself and go, would you stop talking to yourself like that? Like, they don't even, first of all, they don't have time to think about you that much. They probably aren't thinking that at all. They just think you're a nice person, and like, stop.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
But
right.
We all do that. Like, we go on these things, and there's the parent that, which is what I love about psychology, teaching ourselves to parent ourselves in a healthy way, especially when we didn't have healthy parents. It's podcasting for me, and it is like the reminder of, okay, let's focus on that healthy parent and how they would speak to you.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. And the first step in doing that is being able to hear those voices in your head, right? And recognize them for what they are, and are they helpful? Are they not helpful? Right? Are they critical? Are they loving?
Right. And the key is to, what I love what you just said, to recognize we do so much on autopilot that we could be savaging our souls in a 3-minute diatribe in our head. But the goal is to, okay, next time maybe I'll only do it for 2 minutes before I go, okay, stop.
Right. Right. Yeah. And the hardest part, I think, is first recognizing that dialogue.
Yes.
Yeah. I think it gets way easier once you do that. And like you said, you have a choice then. Do I want to let that dialogue continue, or am I going to, encourage myself to go down a different pathway with how I'm talking to myself about whatever situation this is? And that is to sort of bring this full circle to learning to live with this uncertainty in life. A big part, at least for me, of that experience is noticing the dialogue of fear and noticing the stories that my mind tells myself around anticipating worst case scenarios and how quickly I can go into a really dark place, call it the rabbit hole. And I understand that that's a pretty healthy, normal response when you've experienced something that feels like it's come out of the blue, that has blown you away. That part of what the mind does is it wants to say, I'm never going to let that happen again. I am going to be vigilant about my environment and be constantly scanning for any potential, danger. But what happens is then your mind's on overdrive. I mean, it's constantly imagining worst case scenario. And that one is exhausting. And two, you're no longer living in the now. And I had someone tell me numerous times, different people, that, something like cancer absolutely feels like it robs you. And I don't mean that from a victim place. Let's just say, it does. But if you let yourself be hijacked by the fear or whatever paralyzes you as a result of this experience, then it robs you twice. And I don't want that, right? I don't want to be robbed twice of whatever life I have left to live and whatever form of joy and connection I believe I'm still capable of having. But what happens is when I live in that fear-based place, I'm not open to it. I shut down, I isolate, I lose the opportunity to have those rich experiences. And that's paying attention to the mind. That's the dialogue you were talking about. And
the monkey mind.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Well, I am profoundly honored that you want to do this and that you're doing this with our network. It's your show, so your listeners know that everyone on the network is the master and author of their show, but we didn't have anyone talking about this topic. And I am all about, obviously the human condition. So in any way that someone can come in and offer a unique voice to something that really isn't unique.
Yeah, well said, right? Yeah, it feels like it sometimes, though. Yeah,
it does. It does, because it's happening to you. Yeah, absolutely. But I'm so glad. The show is called Precarious, and it'll be on every possible app you can dream of when it comes to podcasting. So Leah Barrett, please tell your listeners and mine where they can find out more information about you.
Yeah, I think the best place to go is my website, which is leahbarrett.com. And there you have links to my Facebook page, Instagram. The podcast will be posted there as well. I have a written blog that I started.
Very good. Yeah.
6 years ago when I was first going through ovarian cancer and then breast cancer. Yeah, and from there you can email me. So that one central website will be the best place to find me. LeahBarrett.com. Yeah.
LeahBarrett.com. Leah, thank you so much. And I'm so excited to hear your next show that I won't be on, but I'll be excited to hear whatever you're going to do with it.
Oh, it's been such a pleasure and an honor, Kristen. And thank you. Thank you for giving me this opportunity to kind of launch this and get this out there. Because again, my hope is people will feel less lonely when they hear stories of others who have faced these really, really difficult life-changing experiences.
Sometimes I'm passive Aggressive, but never without good intentions. I heat up and act on my emotions.
Thanks so much for listening to Mental Health News Radio. Our podcast can be found on iTunes, Stitcher, and hundreds of other podcast apps, or you can visit our website at mentalhealthnewsradio.com. If you have a question or would like to be a guest, become a podcaster on our network, or join the amazing organizations that help keep us on the air, please email us at info@mhnrnetwork.com. Get ready for that special goodbye from our resident therapy dog, Miles, and a special thanks to Emily Sohn for letting us use her incredible song, Cordial, for our podcast music. Listen to the full song on SoundCloud at emily.sonne.
Don't be surprised when I don't hate on you. After all, we promised we'd be cordial.